Alright, this is a TV show review. A little bit of background. Been having some really nasty insomnia issues. Let me go ahead and get the fan. Been having some really nasty issues with chronic insomnia, and I just can't sleep when I want to at night. So I don't want to play video games. I cannot play guitar when my mind is kind of mushy like this. And so, but I can do a proper review of my favorite television series. It might be like a series that I upload where on my mind there's like three of my top favorites. But this first one is head and shoulders above all of them. So I think with movies are more like short stories, and whereas television shows, especially after the early 2000s, late 90s HBO stuff, are more like novels, right? There are some exceptions here and there, and they just keep, making really good shows. Like, I thought Adolescence was really good. I thought That One Night with John Turturro was really good. But I'm going to review my favorite television series, bar none, of all time. So to start off, I think the greatest TV series objectively is The Sopranos. That's why there's so many popular Sopranos videos and references on YouTube, and that's why random Sopranos scenes get watched millions of times. I don't see that with any other TV show, not even Breaking Bad. And I always hate it when people try to compare Breaking Bad with The Sopranos, because to me Breaking Bad is like a graphic novel. I can't enjoy it a second time. It's like there's no reason to watch it. Whereas The Sopranos is the great American novel. What's so great about The Sopranos is it's got like 80, it's 6.5 seasons. I don't remember how many episodes, but let's say 100 episodes. You just pick one randomly, put it on, have a great time, have a great laugh, and it's got an overarching plot. So you're not feeling lost, like what's going on, and because it's very true to life. Whereas Breaking Bad it just feels very phoned in, and it feels inauthentic, and you can't watch it again just because it's so plot driven. It is so driven that you can't pick random episodes, and if you try to rewatch it again, you already know what's going to happen. With Tuco and the trick with the explosion, all that. I'm not saying it's a bad show. I think it's a good show, but it's just a pet peeve when people try to compare Breaking Bad with The Sopranos, right? That's like, to me, it's not even the same game, much less the same league. But my personal favorite, so objectively, I will not argue with anybody that The Sopranos is head and shoulders above every TV show ever made. I don't really compare TV shows and movies directly because, like I said, TV shows are more like short stories, and movies are more like novels. And there's nothing that can ever beat The Sopranos. I mean, it is the greatest TV novel of a person's psyche. It explores the main character's psyche in a way that no ever show had done before or has ever since. We do not get not even 1% deep into Walter White's personality, his values, his inner self. We get like 1% of that compared to 100% on The Sopranos. But that's just an aside. I'm just, trailing off, going on tangents here. My favorite TV show of all time is this one, Deadwood. Deadwood was also an HBO show from 2004 that ran from 2004 to 2006, totaling 3 seasons. So 2004, 2005, 2006, 3 seasons. And even though it didn't have a proper conclusion, it left a lot of hanging threads. To me, it's still the greatest TV show ever. And this might be a short review, this might be a long review, I don't know. I can't sleep, and just kind of feel like rambling on. But yeah, it's the showrunner is David Milch, who is a certified genius. I mean, I think he was a professor at Yale at one point, and back, I think still now, people would refer to him as one of the three wise Davids. David Milch for Deadwood, David Chase for The Sopranos, and David Simon for The Wire, which I think is a great show too, but it's just not close to my favorites. Deadwood just really speaks to me for some reason, and I don't have any like particular fondness for westerns. And this is a western themed show. It's set in the early 1870s, just post Civil War, around the time Custer took his last stand in the upper Midwest, Dakota, Lakota territories, what have you. Really interesting time period in U.S. history. So the show is about, see, like, it's really hard to say like what the show is about just because it's about so many things. I think it's just about life during that period. And there are like two lead characters, main characters in the show. So the show stars Timothy Oliphant, who I think is pretty cool because he loves tennis and I like tennis too. Um, but yeah, I liked him in Go. I haven't seen him in all that many movies. I didn't watch Hitman. It stars Timothy Oliphant. He plays a businessman who becomes a sheriff. Well, first he's a marshal, then he quits the marshal for the federal government to start a business in Deadwood. Okay, so that's our first character. His name is Seth Bullock. Second character's name is Al Swearingen. Al Swearingen right here, right? And he had a saloon. He had a saloon called the Gem Saloon. And he's played by Ian McShane. And he's a barkeeper. And he's also the sort of the unofficial mayor of Deadwood. Now, as the name of the show would suggest, this show is more about the location than it is about certain events or certain characters. It's set in Deadwood, and it is historically accurate to a degree. Now, obviously, artistic license and what have you, but it's historically accurate to the extent that, there really was an Al Swearingen with that weird last name, and there really was a Seth Bullock, who plays Timothy Oliphant. And again, Molly Parker plays, she plays the wife of a New York person who comes to get swindled. It's almost impossible to talk about the plot of this show. There's kind of a hook though. So if you like westerns, this may not even be for you because there's not a lot of shooty cowboy Indian stuff. There is some of that, but I would say it's more like, I don't know, 5%. It's more about drama, and I think the overarching theme of this show is having a lawless community blossom into a place that has a bank, a mayor, and eventually gets brought into the United States as a state. Now, contextually, where this was set was when the United States had signed a treaty with the Native Americans. And so the people living in Deadwood at the time, they were technically violators of that treaty. They were just squatters. But they made a small town out of it. And why were people so attracted to that location in Deadwood? Well, because, as you can see from the trailer, you can literally sift gold from the streams through your hands. And so it's a prospecting town. It's the gold rush. So half the people there are there to get gold. And like I said, there are technically two main characters that we follow with very different personalities. And it really kind of plays with your expectations a lot, the show, because human beings, we tend to see things in black and white. That's why The Sopranos is so good, because, you cannot say that Tony was just a black and white character. He had multiple dimensions. He was evil. He's a psychopath, but he was also an amazing family man, aside from his, affairs. So, aside from those characters, this is an ensemble show. So the first season, there might be a hook to it because it tells the story of the last days of Wild Bill Hickok. And so Wild Bill is in there for about 4 episodes, and then he gets killed by the coward Jack McCall, and they have a trial. And so, if you like Wild Bill, you might like this show. But he's only in there for a few episodes. Calamity Jane, his sort of bosom buddy, or as they portray it on the show, she's there for all 3 seasons, and she is amazing, played by Robin Wiegert, and she's just amazing. So what is it about this show that is so special to me? I really can't put a pin on it. I really cannot put a pin on it. If I had to say one thing, it would be the term immersion. It is such an immersive experience watching the show. Just the camera, the amount of money HBO spent on this was kind of really ridiculous. But I mean, the set dressing, the characters' clothing, nobody looks like the way people do. Like even in like contemporary period pieces, they all have like fucking Instagram face or Facebook or what do you call it, social media face. It's all made up, clean. In Deadwood, there's none of that. You see all the dirt and the grime. And a great example is, I think this is the beginning of season 2 or the end of season 1, where Seth Bullock, our main character, goes to he goes to do something. He has to get out of Deadwood, and he gets into a fight with a Native American, and they fight to the death. And he's kind of a morally upright character, so he wanted to see that the Native American was buried properly. They have to have their bodies facing a certain direction in order to be one with their God. And but the point is, like, the Native American hit him with a hatchet, and it scarred up his forehead, and his forehead is scarred up for all 3 seasons. You would never ever see that on a show like that today. Um, and so it's about the community. It's about people working together, and it really plays around with your expectations in the sense that Ian McShane's character, Al Swearingen, he, in the first few episodes, he comes off as the most conniving, evil, um, just evil motherfucker ever. But as the show progresses forward, you understand his true intentions, and he's not evil for the sake of being evil. He's evil because he wants to protect Deadwood. Now he's selfish too, but he wants to protect Deadwood. And there's so many talented actors on the show. I just list some of them off: Jim Beaver, Brad Dourif, John Hawkes, Paula Mackinson, Robin Wiegert, Earl Brown, Keith Carradine playing Wild Bill Hickok, and even what's her face is in this show. Skylar White is in this show. She plays Seth Bullock's wife. But yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that the show ended after only 3 seasons. But it's a really really ensemble show. It's not one of those shows where like The Sopranos, I could just pick one episode and just watch it. Yeah, it needs a little more context, and it's not a show for everybody either, because you just have to really pay attention to what the characters are saying. Like, this show does not treat its audiences like they're stupid. I hate shows like that, just exposition dump and all of that. Here you have to really pay attention to the subtext, to what is not being said as opposed to what is being said, to gestures and things like that. And when I say it's not for everybody, number one, it's it's very profane and very not graphic, but there's a lot of nudity. The Gem Saloon is a bar and a whorehouse, and there's just profanity in every sentence. It's profanity, and that's probably not period correct, because people back then probably didn't say, you know, that cocksucking hooplehead or something like that. um, yeah, so that's not correct, but just the show is so damn amazing, and it's almost unfair how much of a genius David Milch is. It's like you watch this show and you compare it to any other show you watch, and it's like, God, why do I even care? Um, and again, for me, it's the immersion factor. I actually feel like I am in 1870s, and it's pretty spot on in terms of historical accuracy. They talk about certain historical events like well, what was it, Little Bighorn, or one of the Native American younger chieftains raided, and then Custer's last stand and stuff like that. But the show is also very personal. It's very emotional. It deals with a lot of emotions. and it truly is an ensemble show. So you could have episodes in which our main character is not there at all. And there were some episodes in which, he was just there for like 2 or 3 minutes, and it doesn't miss a beat. You don't need the main characters. Um, but just the entire show, the plot, everything. And main reason it's on top of mind is because I'm getting rid of HBO Max, so I'm kind of rewatching it, and God, it is so amazing. The first episode still gives me chills, and it's just such an amazing, amazing show, and you get to a point. It's kind of like Lost, but Lost is not one of my favorite shows, but I think it's a good show where you develop a bond and a fondness for each and every character and their quirks. And the show is super funny. That's what's missing from shows like Breaking Bad when you're talking about all-time greatest discussions. Breaking Bad's not funny. You know, poking fun at Jesse just because he's stupid and doesn't have a high school diploma. That's not funny. That's not humor. That's not smart humor. That's lowbrow, easy humor. So Deadwood is incredibly funny, but I would say it's about maybe half as funny as The Sopranos, or not even half. Like The Sopranos is 1,000 times funnier. That's why it's one of the greatest shows, because in life you don't have just have drama and sadness and killing and very serious stuff. You also have light stuff and humor. And so I really can't recommend it enough, especially if you like that part of history. Um, and like westerns, gunfights and stuff like that. There is some of that in the first season, first few episodes, but it's much more about protecting your own community, protecting your people from outsiders who are rich, powerful, and who may intrude and not have the best of intentions. And I guess the basic plot setting there is that everybody there is making money, either doing business or prospecting for gold, and they're making money that way. And they just don't want to get their money taken. They don't want to get swindled by either the U.S. government or the Native Americans, slaughtered by the Native Americans, and so on and so forth. Now, it is period perfect, and so there is it might be a trigger warning or what have you. There is racism in the show, but it's never done in bad taste. I've never remembered it being done in bad taste, or at a racial group's expense and everybody else is laughing. So there are black people in there. There's two black characters that I can remember, um, Hofstetler, and I can't say the other one's name because I don't have the pass, but yeah, Hofstadler and the general, the little guy. And they're amazing characters, amazingly written, amazingly portrayed. They're both African American. Oh yeah, and Hearst's chef. So not only do they have like Wild Bill Hickok, Calamity Jane, and then Seth Bullock was actually a real person from Deadwood, as was Al Swearingen. Okay, same with Saul Starr, I think, which is Seth's business partner, and he is he's played by John Hawkes. So going back to like the period accurate racial stuff, like it's not done in poor taste. Like when a character says something racially derogatory, um, it's making them look stupid. It's not it's not making the target look bad. It's making the actual person look stupid and uneducated, and so there's a lot of racism against Black Americans, obviously, and there's a lot of racism against Jewish Americans. One of our main characters, Sol Star, is a Jewish person from Austria. His family's from Austria, and okay, so there's that. So there's white on white racism, and there's more white on white racism because they're racist or prejudiced against other white people who can't speak you know the same English. They're prejudiced against people, the Scandinavian people, and they call them quote unquote squareheads for whatever reason. It's very derogatory and disrespectful, but they're all white, and it's just because the Scandinavian people Um, they spoke with an accent and they spoke their native tongues and stuff like that. Um, the show is amazing. If you like Timothy Oliphant, because he's probably the most famous person, or Ian McShane, you should definitely watch the show because I've seen Justified, and it's for me it's like NYPD Blue except just a little edgier. Deadwood is completely different. It's not a procedural. It's not, this guy becomes a sheriff and he solves a case on this week's episode. Next week's episode, there's going to be a trial and so forth. That's not how it plays out. Okay, so going back to, so I keep jumping all over the place, but the historical accuracy. Um, I remember growing up learning the name Hearst, Hearst, and associating it with something super rich, like a super rich family, the Hearst family. Well, I think the patriarch actually he's in the show and he's a main character, and he is portrayed as a capitalist, a very very I think Omar Gooding's even in the show, but yeah, he's portrayed as a very conniving, evil, uh, unscrupulous capitalist who wants to just take all their land, take all their gold, and so on and so forth. And so it's 3 seasons full of stories, very personal stories, and you get to, you get to really like the characters. There's also racism against Latinos. There's one comment, I think, about, a Latino person. There's racism against Native Americans and also Asian Americans. Asians, not Americans, but ironically, the Asian dude became an Asian American during the show, like on the show. And so again, it's not the kind of racism that's ugly and unacceptable. It's more period accurate, and it's never done at the expense of the person on the receiving end. But it is such a wonderful, wonderful show. And I'll just make a few more final points. Like the dialogue writing in the show is what you would probably expect from like a Yale professor. It's written in, I think it's iambic pentameter. It's written in a Shakespearean sort of rhythm. And they mix in like words, like period correct words with modern words like motherfucker or cocksucker or piece of shit. And every character is very unique and has their own sort of uh, personality to them. It's very immersive and believable in that way. And it's just like, the first season happens and then ends, and then second season, and then just things start happening that you don't expect. Tragic events occur to our main characters, and ultimately, there's happiness. And at the very end of the show, it's extremely bittersweet, and I think it was a perfect ending. A lot of people wanted to have like season 4, season 5, but I think the actual ending of the show, where he goes, he tries to console Johnny or whatever, because they did a bait and switch. They had to kill somebody and prove it to the rich guy that they killed her. It's a very fitting end to this show. And that's not it, because I first watched the show back in 2017 or 2018. Um, in 2019, they actually came out with a movie with David Milch directing or writing the movie. I forget if he directed it, but he definitely wrote the movie. And it's a 2019 TV movie, HBO movie, basically, called Deadwood. And it takes place around, I think, 10 or 15 years later, at least 11 or 12 years later, after the third season. And by that time, South Dakota had already become a state of the United States, and George Hearst was either a senator or, yeah, he was a senator or a congressman. And he is an actual real life, character. But yeah, the show's basically, the show is about a place that has no laws, has no police, and a lot of rich people because they're all, collecting gold and prospecting for gold. It's about that kind of a community being turned into a community where you have a bank, a newspaper, telegraph wires, and things of that nature. And it's also an extremely sweet and heartwarming show. It's not sappy or anything like that, but it's very sweet and heartwarming, and you come to love all the characters. They all have their own like little tender moments, and so it's especially for me, it's the greatest show of all time. Although I do admit, objectively, Sopranos would take it by a mile. It's not even close. I mean, The Sopranos it's just like the perfect show. I mean, David Chase is a fucking genius. But David Milch, who created Deadwood, unfortunately, back in like 2017 or even earlier, he started getting symptoms of dementia. But he still wrote the movie, the 2019 movie, and I think the movie is an amazing, amazing send off to this show. It ties up almost every loose end, and the ending scene is just so perfect and beautiful. It got me emotional. But I've seen people complain that the movie, wasn't that good. It's not as good as the show. It didn't tie up the loose ends. Yes, it did. Watch the movie. Well, watch the show first, and then watch the movie. For me, this is a 20 out of 10 show, which means like no show I'll ever watch is ever going to surpass this. Right now, I'm watching a TV show called Reply 1988. It's a Korean show, and it is amazing. It is beautiful. It's very heartwarming. It got me emotional multiple times. It's about a group of friends growing up from high school and heading into college, and yeah, and I've almost like I've gotten halfway through, and I know like it's gonna be a huge gut punch and so on and so forth. But it's not gonna be as good as Deadwood. Deadwood is just a very, very special gem that will never be replicated. And uh, again, it's not for everybody. I remember when I tried watching the first episode, when they were trying to swindle the New York, I forget what they call him, like goosenecked New York high society person out of his money. Um, there was a bar scene in which they were plotting and talking back and forth, who's gonna say what and who's gonna pretend to do what, kind of like Glengarry Glen Ross, except in reverse. And I had to rewatch that section multiple times just to understand what was happening. But if you can like watch it and understand it and really pay attention, like you are really heavily rewarded. The camera work and all of that is also super amazing. The cinematography is just, oh my gosh, that's what I mean by immersion. The thoroughfare, which is basically the common area of Deadwood, it's a street basically. It's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. There are slow-mo shots. There are foreshadowing shots. For example, the night before Wild Bill Hickok is killed, he's helping some friends. He's helping Seth Bullock build a store, a business, and he gets in a bad mood, and then he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go play some poker." And the shot is them lifting the first beam of the wooden planks, and it literally places Wild Bill Hickok in a coffin. And so this show just has a lot of empathy, and it has a lot of violence. It's very violent, as you would expect from that time period. But there's just something super, super special about this show, and I just cannot recommend it enough. Again, it's Deadwood, and it's an HBO show made by David Milch. Final thing, like I also really like Carnival, which is came out around the same time, starring Nick Stahl, and it's about a group of circus people, carnies basically, and one of them has like super magic powers. And Clancy Brown was in that show, and he was fucking amazing, like he always is. But I mean, that show would have had a lot of potential, but I think there was only 2 seasons, and yeah, it's not even in my top 10. But that show had a lot of potential. But I mean, Deadwood. Deadwood is just so underrated, and people don't talk about it that much. It gets mentioned in like top 10 lists and so on and so forth, but people don't really talk about it that much these days. And it's the perfect time to start watching it, I think, because it's just such a good show. I mean, just the first 6 minutes after the opening credits roll, and the opening credits is a masterpiece in and of itself. Just the sort of montage and the music, and then the first scene of the first episode tells you a lot about what's going to happen in the show and so on and so forth. So definitely give that a try. I would rate this a 15 out of 10. It's not that many episodes. I think it's a total of 36 episodes, and then you count a 90-minute movie. And again, the movie takes place set 10 to 15 years in the future, and everybody's changed. They look older, and it ties up everything. So if you've never seen Deadwood, please, at the very least, go on YouTube, watch Deadwood trailer, and see if it's your cup of tea. They have some quotes in there saying, this is some of HBO's best work. In my opinion, it is. And so, even if you don't want to start a show right now because of the time investment and so forth, at the very least, watch the trailer. And it's very, very exciting. It's a very exciting show. It's a very emotional show. And from a show's perspective, it is extremely novelistic, like The Sopranos. Although it's very different from The Sopranos, but it's also very novelistic, like The Sopranos. Unlike some other overrated TV shows like Breaking Bad, I actually think Better Call Saul's twice, three times as good as Breaking Bad, just because it's rewatchable and it's funnier. So again, Deadwood, 2004 by David Milch, starring Timothy Olyphant, Molly Parker, and Ian McShane. Also, obviously, Brad Dourif is in the show, and he's amazing. From if y'all remember him with Jack Nicholson in that One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He still looks the same too. But yeah, I just could not sleep, so I wanted to get like a TV show review out. I may do one or two more, or I may just have one TV series review just for Deadwood, just because it's so special, man. It is so special. And I'm not even into the Western history or any of that. That doesn't appeal to me. But after watching Deadwood, I started enjoying period pieces more, like the set dressing, the costume, everything is period correct. And this is before social media. It's 2004. So nobody has Instagram face. Nobody looks pristine. Even the most prettiest women in the show, you can tell that they're not using heavy makeup because they still have their freckles and all of that. And so, yeah, it's an amazing show. It is highly recommended, and it just makes you fall in love with the characters. It makes you want to inhabit the world. That's what the best shows are about. Shows that make you yourself want to be a part of that world, or be a part of be a character in that world, be a fly on the wall. And my favorite character on the show is E.B. Farnham. He's just the most funny and pathetic character you could ever imagine. He's a hotel owner, and he always has damp palms and so forth. But yeah, Deadwood, give that a try.